All right, once you have Inventor open, we're going to look at putting some geometric constraints on some geometry inside of Inventor today. So I'm going to go ahead and click New, and I'm going to make a standard part file. So I'll go ahead and click Create to create that part file. Once your window opens, you can go ahead and click Start a New Sketch. And when we start a sketch, we have to pick a plane to sketch on. And so in this case, I'm going to go ahead and click that I want to sketch on the YZ plane. Once you have that done, like I said, we're going to use some geometric constraints. And so the first thing I'm going to show you, and I want you to do, is to click the rectangle tool, click and draw a rectangle in your space, your graphics window, and then I want to right click and I want to say show all constraints. So when I do that, it'll show me all the geometric constraints that are tied to this sketch. And so I have a few geometric constraints. The first one that I look at here, I have a parallel constraint. So a parallel constraint always comes in pairs. So when I hover over this one and put my cursor over it, you can see that it shows the two lines that are parallel, these two that are opposite of each other. This is a perpendicular constraint. This constraint makes two lines perpendicular to each other, or they form a 90-degree angle right here. So that's what my perpendicular constraint's doing. I can go ahead and I'm going to come over here, and I want you to do this with me. Right click, and you want to delete that parallel constraint. So it deleted the parallel constraint that we had on our object. So now I can edit this, because this line and this line now do not have to be parallel to each other. And so notice how that geometry can move that. The geometry can change based on our constraints. Alright, so that's one way to look at and edit some of your geometry. So it might take a minute for you to get that point and move it around, but go ahead and move around and see how it affects the geometry. The next constraint we're going to look at is a concentric constraint. And so I'm going to come over here to this side, and if you use the wheel on your mouse, you can zoom in and out. But I'm going to go ahead and draw two circles. I'm going to make one a little bigger than the other. It doesn't have to be perfect by any means. And so the concentric constraint will make two circles have the same center point. So I'm going to click on concentric, and I'm going to click on my two circles. And I can now see that it has created a constraint where these two circles have the same center point. So they're concentric now. So I'm going to go ahead and hit escape on my keyboard to get rid of that, and I can look at how that affects the geometry. I can resize the circles, but they always stay at the same center point. I can move the circles around, but they always still have the same center point. The last constraint I want to show you today is the tangent constraint. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on tangent. I can click on the outside edge of my circle, and what tangent does is it takes an arc, in this case the outside of our circle, and it makes it tangent with a line. And so what I did when I clicked the arc and the line, it has now put the outside edge of that circle so it touches this line. And so again, I can still move my object. You can see how it affects, the constraints affect the geometry. And so that's how what I want you to do. Play around with those geometric constraints inside of Inventor. And when you're finished, remember, I want you to take a screenshot of your work, and I want you to upload it to Canvas.